I think a lot of things are changing in the world, and I think a lot of people are seeing things differently and are having their eyes opened to the fact that things may not have been the way they've been looking at things their whole life. Deciphering My Experience is a channel that I started to unpack myself, I guess you would say. That I have many oddball experiences in my life that for a while, you know, as an individual line item of life, I never gave it much credit to mean anything. But as a curious, investigative mind myself, there's a lot of avenues that I've always been researching and looking into. And a lot of people have lived very peculiar lives and had different experiences in their own right. And I always found that intriguing. I mean, you're an investigator into the paranormal as well. You find this stuff intriguing. You can get that. But I found that the more I was looking into things, I couldn't disconnect myself from the question of being involved. And the more I looked into things, it just became harder and harder to distance myself from the reality that was looking more and more like I had some sort of interaction in these communities. And I started to pay more attention to my own experiences and try to talk to other people that I was realizing were having similar experiences as myself. And it was actually quite challenging. I mean, I don't come from an illogical or unrational background. I'm not trying to make anything hokey pokey or, believe me or trust me. I'm trying to get facts out there to people. And I think that's what's getting me on people's radars. I have facts. I have been places. I have had experiences. I'm learning more and more about my involvement in the remote viewing projects that the CIA was working on with children in my grammar school. I was involved in the United States Navy nuclear submarine program for a period of time. I was down at the South Pole Station in Antarctica for a year straight. I've worked remotely in many facilities across Alaska, which, I don't even know how to begin to try to inform people of what that is like. It's so outside of your experiences. I mean, I've had some wonderful benefits in my experience, and the winter at the South Pole was certainly one of them. I had many occasions to be walking around outside at, minus 90 something degrees ambient, and I'd have all my gear on and silence beyond silence, to the point where you can actually hear your own circulatory system pumping. And your breathing, everything becomes much louder because it's the only sound. There's no other sound present. And the auroras, the aurora australis, when it would occur, could be so loud. Besides the visual, you would get this sizzling, this crackling that would occur. And there were times where, the ice at the South Pole, it's actually 9,300 feet of elevation.
Wow.
So, and there's no mountains or anything. So everywhere you look in any direction, 360 degrees, it's technically downhill. Okay. So there's a weird thing that can happen on a really clear, starry night, is that you can just take your head and just look up just a few degrees from what would be the horizon. And then at that point, if you turn 360 degrees, you won't even see the Earth. So it's like you're in space. The first thing that brought me in as a lock, where I said, I am going to have to now reach into this community and inquire further because I have suspicions, was a gentleman by the name of Tony Rodriguez, who is in the secret space program community. And it was his testimony that struck a hard chord with me about the Gateway program in the grammar schools, and what I now know to be a remote viewing CIA training program that ran all kinds of horror stories against the children in the program. And the more that I'm digging into it, I'm finding out that I was involved in this program. And one of the many things that are my connections. But that was the one. That was the rod that, you know, the lightning struck in his testimony and things that were connecting, and it, you know, it reframed a lot of my memories at that point. It's a horror show, actually, if you want to really know about that. Finding out the stuff about these programs, it's crushing sometimes.
It's true. It's horrific when you see some of the, especially when you see programs that are described in classified documents,
Mm-hmm.
just like the rules that they abide by and
Mm-hmm.
how egregious they really are without
Mm-hmm.
actually saying it, because they'll say something like, I remember I was watching one of your YouTubes and it said that you could opt out at any time, but
Mm-hmm.
there was nobody you could opt out with. You know, there was nobody you could go to say, okay, I want to get out. So they're
Mm-hmm.
literally doing it against your will in that sense. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these programs. We know what they are. MK Ultra. I mean, Penny has told me quite a few of them. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many, you know, and they do like these experiments. They're like social and sadistic almost experiments to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you've been doing a lot of uncovering of that stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. This is the sin of these programs, is they're doing this to children, okay? And we now know how the child's psyche deals with exhaustive trauma. It dissociates. And in that aspect of dissociation, I can only give you my perspective, my experience. I call it reframing a memory. So I look at it as a child's psyche is put into a traumatic circumstance. So everybody needs to figure out how to deal. So the child's psyche basically takes that situation, that memory, that photograph of time, and puts like a matting on it, puts a frame over it, so that a lot of that photo is now covered up. You don't have to see it all. And that's a framed memory. And I would say that the vast majority of my life, I was running around with a head full of framed memories because my psyche had been traumatized to allow me to only see it framed that way. Now, making connections pulls that matting and that frame off and allows me to now, as an adult, see what was wholly going on in that picture that was too much for the psyche of a child. I guess for me initially, it was the Montauk project was many years ago before all the local hubbub on it. I mean, I'm from Long Island, so I had, you know, a little bit more closer proximity to the story. And I just happened to be in a Barnes and Noble bookstore in Bayshore one day, and walking in, there was a table of books on sale, and there was a book called Weird New York. And I like weird things, and I'm a New Yorker. So I picked up the book, I opened it up, and as soon as I opened it up, it went right to a picture. It was the Sage Radar Tower, and it was the story about Montauk, and blah, blah, blah. Montauk Project was the headline or something like that. But I remember looking at that picture. As soon as I opened up the book, I looked at the picture, and I went, oh, I've been there before. And then I started to read the story, and I went, wait a minute, wait, what? That's weird. And I didn't really have any real other recollections than that or connections at all. But I did wind up becoming, I guess, on the trail of all things Nikola Tesla at some point. Became very fascinated with the idea of technologies and things like that. And was doing well in my researches there. And in that capacity, I wound up, I guess for all practical purposes, I didn't know it at the time, but I was meeting my handler, met me in the process of me looking up this Tesla stuff. And then I got an education from someone who was obviously in the programs beforehand. And I was taught all kinds of wonderful things. I was taught a history of the alphabet agencies, you know, how things started, where they got to where they were now. And this was someone who presented to me as a customer. You know, that was an interesting thing in my plumbing career, was once I got to a point where I was researching things well enough, I guess, I would, you know, I had my own thing going on, but I never, you know, I don't have control over who calls my phone and says, can you come to my house? I just go where they give me an address. And it became rather interesting that I would be showing up to people's homes all the time that now had books to give me. The Montauk Project, before becoming sensationalized on television shows, was about some really seriously dark stuff going on the east end of Long Island. Which, if you're into television shows and you want to know the truth about the dark side of the Montauk Project, go to Netflix and type in dark. That's the true story of what happened at the Montauk Project. And it has to do more with manipulating consciousness through time and space, to put it in a nutshell. And a lot of people are going to have a hard time digesting that that's possible, but that's not really my problem. The technology exists now, and the techniques existed for eons. If you disagree with me, I have piles of books and many of people that would say otherwise. You don't have to take my word for it. Reality is not how it's been presented to you, folks. Sorry you've been lied to. Not my problem.
There is this, they have this, it's sort of like a conspiracy theory, they say, but in the Vatican, they have this machine called the Chronovisor.
Yep.
And the Chronovisor lets the user manipulate time and space and view certain big events within our history. It is said through research that they are actually have viewed the crucifying of Jesus Christ. They saw where Noah had built the ark. They also saw Muhammad and his quest to bring the Muslim faith to all of the Middle East. They also saw things that were a little bit further forward in time, as for the the crucifying of Jesus, the fall of Rome. There is a theory that this machine does exist within the Vatican, and we know that just on its own, that the Vatican is not a state, it is not a country, it is a self-contained piece of land that is essentially its own entity from everything else. So, and also there's a lot of things that the Vatican has artifacts through the Judeo-Christian faith that go back, that have powers, like the spear that stabbed Christ. There's so many things at the Vatican that we know nothing about, which is one of the reasons why the Crusade happened, was because they were trying to, what they tried to do is they tried to go to, the Knights Templar tried to infiltrate the Middle East and grabbed all of these artifacts that were of that time period and brought them back to the Vatican. Just to go a little bit further with it, that there is so many things that have to do with the bending of time and space, where we've had instances where time travelers have come back and have talked about these specific moments that really that there's like these pocket portals that they can come through to a specific time. So we know that there's a lot with magnetic fluctuations that tamper with it. But, you know, the Montauk Project is delving into that specific mentality of bending time and space, and or manipulating those on a conscious level to program them to be sleeper cells, basically to astral project. There's so many departments that we'd have to sit here and do a 7-hour show to compartmentalize all the different subjects that fall under that specific program. And there are a multitude of programs just like it throughout history.
This is why I'm trying to get unity in the community. This is why I want everybody to start talking, because I believe everybody has value, and I believe things are actually so much more complex that I think we need to start communicating so we actually realize how different our stories are. I think too many people are trying to find stories that are all alike, because then we'll very rapidly get to the answer, as if it's that simple. I don't think we're going to rapidly find common ground. I think we're going to rapidly find that the problem is so vast that we have a lot of conversations to have, because everything you said, I agree with about the Vatican, okay? The problem that makes it exponentially worse is they're not the only ones with the Chronovisor. They were the first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
The
now
machine
everything
has
you
been
said is true.
replicated hundreds of
Everything you
times.
everything you've said is true about that faction. So now think about the power the Vatican has. They can look into the future. Okay, cool. Now think about how many other factions now have that, what that means, and what type of warfare is going on in this new environment where we're having people on every side wielding weapons that the general population isn't even aware of.
There are, but with this specific subject, there's more than just two. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably what, seven, eight, nine factions, maybe even more than we know.
Oh, it's
Sub-factions.
innumerable. We from our perspective, we might as well just call it infinite, because here we are on Earth, and we don't even know the amount of factions fighting for us as a resource right here, locally.
When people have stories, every story is told through perception. Perception is embodied by ego. So when two people have different perceptions and they both feel they're right, the ego takes over and they start casting doubt upon the other.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, nobody can work together. That's why you
Mm-hmm.
always need to keep an open mind and always listen to what people have to say. You have to always be a better listener.
To me, in my mind, I'm thinking that the challenge at this point is to take all these people from different experiences. And what I've suggested to people is in these conversations where we're sharing experiences, that we don't focus on the things that make our stories different. There's always going to be differences. We're all different people and having different experiences. If we focus on the differences, we will always get nowhere. We'll always never agree. But if we share our experiences, and if there's at points in time we get to things that are differing, then we just move to the things that we agree on in our experiences, and that'll help us move closer to the truth rapidly. And I think people need to stop this whole bickering thing about, who said this, like that person or not. To me, that's divisive. To me, those people should be looked at questioningly. If you're suggesting that every story should be homogenous, I look at you funny.
I agree with you 100%.
It's controlled confusion. This is what I talked to Penny about, and such, that way back when these programs were manufactured for the purposes of mind control. Initially, it was in a targeted capacity where they would work on a one-to-one basis to get a mind figured out, and they would target individuals. Well, that was a training program. It was research and development. They're beyond that now. I'm not targeted in that way, so to say, anymore. Everyone else is. They figured out what they needed to figure out, and just like you pointed out, this is now what's going on today. We are actively in World War III, and the weapons are no longer conventional. They are the patented directed energy weapons of the battlefield of the future that we somehow believe is going to be applied to troop forces in a foreign land. It's not what this stuff was designed for, and we are actively witnessing in our civilian world the effects of directed energy weapons. If you want to learn about that, study Dr. Giordano. He's a neuroscientist. He does a great talk at West Point where he's educating the future leaders of our military on the future weapons that they will have to deal with and the symptoms to look for. They are not conventional. And when you study these things, you'll see that our civilian population is currently suffering what are known symptoms of commercialized military grade weapons that are for sale to the public, to the highest bidder.
And if we take an instance of where this has happened, a few years ago, they had a meeting in Cuba, right? And there was a delegate from the United States, there was delegates from Cuba, and all of a sudden, everybody in the place started getting sick, throwing up, diarrhea. They felt terrible. Nobody could explain why. And even the I don't know if it was the military or the government, our government, came to the conclusion that they were hit with some kind of subsonic wave from a weapon that caused them to have this reaction. And the thing about that is we all vibrate at a frequency. If
Mhm.
they're using a specific frequency, if I can emulate a specific frequency, I can make you throw up. I
Right.
can make you crap your pants. I can make you pass out.
Mhm.
So that's an energy-based weapon. They're just using a frequency
Mhm.
instead of there's other types of energy that can be used. That can be
And that's more
manufactured.
proactive, actually. They can actually just make you sad.
Mhm.
They can make you compliant. Mask on your face, mask on your face.
You
Mhm.
know, there's a red pill, a black pill, and a blue pill. Blue pill means you don't give a damn. Black pill means that you're engaging in a lot of things that don't specifically have to do with you, but it's opening your eyes to more. Red pill is finding information that essentially is changing how you see things and your perceptions of everything. And
Mhm.
it's a radical thing. It messes people up at first, but
Mhm.
after the dust settles, you start to see clearly.
The power of the edit, and to understand how much their life has been impacted by that up until 2020. The way that information has been presented to you up until now was under such a controlled edit to present reality in such a piss poor fashion to make you think that it was something different. Everyone's been lied to through the power of the edit for a solid 30 years. You've been misinformed and lied to about what's been going on around you, where your money has went, what it's been invested to, what technologies are available. You know,
What
I've
technology
seen.
does to you. They're not even
Yeah.
just available, but what your phone does to you.
Yes, 100%. Yes, everybody's talking about all of these things that in the future we need to be afraid because you know what they're going to be able to do. Yes, exactly what they can do right now. You've been lied to. They're already doing it.
They manufacture that reel that when I was talking about when somebody gets programmed, they
Hmm.
manufacture what you see
Hmm.
to put you in a specific state of mind.
Hmm.
They they play on your emotions
Hmm.
by showing you visions that make you feel specific ways. I know that history is written by the victor, right? History is always written by the guy who won.
Hmm.
I know that, and anytime I dive into a subject, I
Hmm.
take it further than that. I know that. So
Hmm.
I look at histories from both sides of the mantle instead
Hmm.
of just looking at what the history book tells you. I
Hmm.
look at witness accounts. When I do research, I feel that my research and I'm not saying that people don't do this, but I can't speak for them. I can only speak for me. I do it differently and I see different things that people don't normally see because I have been red pilled. I
Hmm.
am objectively open to everything. I stand outside of the box instead of sitting in the circle.
I'm here to try to help people, like you said, to learn, to get more educated, to understand that the power of the edit has put people in a position to think they're very informed.
They're really not. They're actually fed false information.
What I'm working on right now is trying to put together the tools to help other people help themselves. So I feel like this is learning a different set of tools. So I'm trying to connect with people who have the ability to help me, and then are willing to share their skill set with me to build my skill set up so that I can help more people. I have a lot of conversations with folks off camera trying to make these connections and sharing our experiences. And I get a lot of positive feedback from folks that I'm helping them out, that I'm giving them connections that they hadn't seen before. And it's just cool. I mean, I reached out to people in the past to look for that and I received it. So I want to make sure that I reciprocate and I take that energy and give it back. That's where I'm at. I want to help people get through this. I very much believe that what happened to me was wrong. I believe it's happened to a lot of other people. I do not feel special in this, that I was manipulated. I only feel special in as so far as I was able to wake up first.
do you think that maybe that, you know, as of the last 20 years, mental illness has gone skyrocketing? Could this be a direct correlation to these types of programs and why these people have these mental illnesses? Because they're injecting these programs on a mass scale now.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of people that are waking up. There's a lot of people that have been hurt. And since they're not communicating with each other about their experiences because they're uncomfortable, because people are telling them that they're supposed to have words that come out of their mouth that takes their experience and makes it similar to someone else's. So since they can't do that, they don't talk. And since they have been traumatized, they present to someone else as being mentally ill. The lie is so big on purpose. They made it like it's indigestible. You'll choke on it. It's too big. You know, it's massive. All of the things that are going on through all of, I mean, eons and eons of deception. We have people contemporarily, they wake up in the morning, they go to work, they have bills to pay. I get it. That's the limit of their perspective. But that perspective was designed for them. That's the boundary of where they were meant to look. But I can assure you that in the grander scheme of all of the cosmos, you are not so blessed to be birthed on this planet to work a 9-to-5 job and just be sweating your mortgage payment every month. There's certainly more to this.
And totally agree with that.
If somebody wants to try to convince you that I'm wrong, they're misinformed or part of the program working against you, and they know it. I want to give people a platform to speak their truth and to just, I mean, not to discount, not to like support, so to say, but just to say, listen, this is this person's truth. Absorb it. It's not even a take it or leave it. It's like, listen to it. You may not have any value for it at the moment, but we're going to bring on more people and we're going to have more people talk. And all of these things are going to start to paint a picture. I've known, I guess, my entire life that every single human being's experience is actually of equal value. It's completely equal value. You know, it's now if you're going to apply your biases to what you think is better than someone, oh, well, this guy had a mansion, and whoa, that's what you think. But technically, every single human experience is of equal value. And if you meet someone and you can't find the value in the exchange of learning from that person's experience, that's on you. It doesn't mean that their experience in life is lacking. It means you couldn't find the value in it, and that's on you. I'm probably sitting on some stuff.
Oh,
I'm not looking to talk to a wall. Once I can find out that I'm actually getting out to people, it's going to be some more interesting conversations. Because as you can see, like you're talking about these platforms, I'm well aware of the fact they're trying to shut us up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the moment that that microphone goes on, you will be touching a lot more people than you think. I will guarantee that. And you know, people sometimes look at like the numbers on Facebook or this or that. That is nothing. That is nothing. Not even a tenth of the amount of people that we reach on this network. We are vast, we are wide, and terrestrial radio is afraid of us. This is like fourth dimensional warfare.
Yeah. Yes,
The
exactly.
start of fourth dimensional warfare.
And yes, I do believe that's precisely what's going on. We are in a 4D quantum war. Time and space is not what most people have been taught, and things can happen differently. And like you said earlier with the Chronovisor, that's technically, in one sense, a device, in another sense, a weapon, depending on what you want to call what at what time. If information is something that can be weaponized, well, then a device that can gather information across time and space is technically just a ammo collector.
Once you do get that awakening, you tend to not speak to so many people anymore. Your friends kind of go away because
Mhm.
there is a superficial ostracization that they
Mhm.
feel that now you're crazy. Now you think you know everything. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of different egos that come
Mhm.
involved with it. And I think that it's pathetic. It's it's immature. And I think that they are naive.
If you are an experiencer, if you have a story that you want to share, or you're just someone that's having trouble and looking for a little bit of help, you can email me at decipheringme369 at gmail.com, and then that will obviously be private. I can only give you assurances that I will not share your story without you telling me to. I mean, I've been pretty fair up until this point with folks. People have reached out to me and I have put them on the air when they asked for it. And when they have not and they just wanted help, you can email me and I will try to use any of my life experience to help you figure out yours.